Anybody out here need a seat? I know guys with the demo tables will probably want a seat. Well, thank you everybody for coming tonight. San Diego, you can hear me? All right. I wish we had the Del Mar office conference room here. We are like just busting out of the seams. But
we got seats available for you here, Russ.
Next time.
You can teleport somebody on that.
Thanks, Jim. Again, thank you everybody here in San Diego for coming. Sorry it's a little bit squished, but just people kept coming even when we turned the event right off. So I apologize if it's cozy. It's kind of like when you buy property and it's got carriage, it means it's a real dump and needs fixing up. So definitely cozy tonight. My name is Roger Rapport. I'm the leader of our Emerging Growth and Technology Practice Group. So I'm a lawyer. Funny, whenever I say, oh, I'm a lawyer, you can trust me, people go, right. But before I just introduce the panelists and pay for dinner by thanking Procopio for hosting, what I'd like to do is just give the folks that have the demo tables maybe 30 seconds to just tell us what they're doing, and then we'll get right into it.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Russell Hanabusa of Skin Sampler Technology. This is a skin sampler. If it touches you, it'll take and hold your DNA. It's also wirelessly detectable and uniquely identifiable. Okay. It turns this girl from a victim into a DNA identification booby trap against kidnappers and rapists. We can make the phone instantly call for help, sending a GPS location out to the police, sending them the information to scan for her tags, even as they close in on the kidnapper. We have a demo table outside. You can come and talk to me after. Thank you.
I thought the only thing I wanted tonight was a grush, but now I've got 2 young girls, so now I'm collecting items. All right, who else is out there with the demo table?
Okay, so we have Jim.
Jim, where are you, Jim?
I'm Jim O'Keefe with LiveSpace. So we make the sensor and audio interface to tomorrow's smart home. And our 3 use cases that we're going to market with in July are whole home audio, where the sound gets brought to the room of the house that you're in, even through the speakers you bought already. Whole home speakerphone, where it looks like a Bluetooth speaker to your smartphone, which is good, but it gets propagated out to the speaker in the room that you're in, so you can hold conference calls without holding the cell phone. And the last use case is Siri in every room, where again it starts to look like Siri to a Bluetooth to your smartphone, but again we bring Siri to the correct room of the house. LiveSpace.
Nice.
Hi, Tom Sherlock from Solatido. I'm working on a project because I believe that we need productivity instead of having to sit down at a laptop every time we want to hammer out a 10-page brief or something. So we folded it up. You can still use it on a horizontal surface, but it folds up like your hand folds up so that it can be a typing keyboard, a gaming controller, or a saxophone or a piano or whatever you'd like it to be. To be used with a head-mounted display. Thank you.
And we have Jennifer. Want to say a couple words? Eric, sure.
So we're Percept Corp, and we're in a stealth mode. So I am going to just tease you with some information. We are in the wearable space. We have a lot of intellectual property that is very old, and we're actually kind of a 10-year company, but we're just now coming to the market with our technology. So hopefully you'll be hearing a lot from us in the future.
And Roger, you want to say a couple words about Procopio?
Yeah. Procopio is a full-service law firm. It started in San Diego in 1946. It has all of the things that startups need, from corporate, which is my domain, IP, something that you folks will never need, litigation, real estate, tax, and so my passion is obviously corporate. I was an entrepreneur for 10 years. I had kind of a crappy exit, so I just tell my clients, do what I didn't do, don't do what I did, you'll be fine. And to that end, I always try, our meetup for those of you that came through my meetup, which was Silicon Valley Startup Entrepreneurs, the little goldfish with the big shark fin, the goal, and with Dia and her groups as well, is education and access. We want to provide startups with as much information as possible. I know when I was an entrepreneur, I just didn't know where to go look. I kind of knew that I didn't know anything, and it was hard to find the information. So that's our one leg. Our second leg is access, just giving you access to really phenomenal entrepreneurs, investors, and hopefully the panel tonight will live up to that. The goal with our meetups is really for you to walk out and say, wow, that was a good use of an hour or 2 hours. And we really want this to be interactive, which I'm hoping it will be. So just in the education piece, sort of my top 10, for those of you that haven't gotten it, a lot of folks are repeat offenders here, so, but if you want to just take it if you don't have one. So without further ado, what I'll do is just introduce Daniel very briefly, Pankaj. So Pankaj is with Qualcomm, head of the Wearables unit in Qualcomm. Daniel was previously with Qualcomm, now an esteemed author of The Silent Intelligence. And Daniel and I have known each other from Silicon Valley. I moved down to San Diego after the bubble burst in 2004. We hang around here for a few years in the nuclear winter. And we used to see each other on the flight from San Diego with the same people Monday morning and then Thursday evening. So great to have you here. What I'd like you to do, guys, is maybe just give a little bit more background to what you're doing, and then we'll just let you guys take it from here. What we're going to do is maybe just open it up to Pankaj and Daniel for maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then we're just going to open it up. Obviously, we want you guys to have access. We want this to be absolutely relevant for you, so we'd like to have this dialogue between the two. San Diego, we want to make this interactive as well, so please feel free, raise your hand. If you have a question or whatever during the portion where we're going to make this interactive, really want to make sure that you guys are engaged as well. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Daniel and Pankaj.
Thanks a lot, Roger, and welcome everybody. My name is Daniel Ogodowski, and I'm co-founder of The Silent Intelligence, which is a consulting company, and we help companies figure out the Internet of Things, especially go-to-market strategy and business development. And in addition, we also do tech events, which is events like this. This is our first event in the Silicon Valley. Normally we do events in San Diego. So I would like really to encourage you to join our meetup, The Silent Intelligence, and also check us out on Twitter, Silent Intel Book. Considering that we are having this very intimate setting today, it definitely makes a lot of sense to really make it as interactive as possible. Before I pass it over to Pankaj, I wanted to say that Pankaj and I met. Actually, I saw Pankaj about 5 or 6 years ago when he was speaking at TEDx San Diego. And at the time, Pankaj was working at Intel. And I was sitting there and looking, I said, wouldn't it be great, and I was at Qualcomm at the time, I was thinking, wouldn't it be great to have somebody like this working at Qualcomm who can also speak at TEDx? And little did I know that 2 years later, Pankaj actually came and joined Qualcomm, which is great. But then I left. And kind of
no correlation.
Yeah, so Pankaj is leading the wearable tech at Qualcomm, and him and I did an event in January in San Diego, which was right after the CES. And it so happens that this event happens right after the Mobile World Congress. So we're going to talk a little bit. So let me pass it over to you to introduce yourself and maybe say a couple of words on what do you see is happening with wearable tech right now.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
How many of you have a wearable? Very good. How many of you have a phone, mobile? Okay. There needs to be a one-to-one. I joined Qualcomm about 18 months ago. About a year ago, we incubated this business, wearable business unit, because there is so much interest, so much innovation, so much experimentation happening with our customers. From Samsung and down, to Timex and down in the watch space to all kind of startups. And literally it is Brownian motion, right? If you ask 10 people, what is the killer use case? You'll get 11 answers, right? Which is great for a silicon company because we get to sell silicon to everybody, right? So it is a very exciting space. We are seeing a lot of action. We are working with a host of customers. Every week, one of our customers announces product. Some make it, some don't. That's the nature of the game. So happy to talk about what we are seeing in the market, what we are doing, and address any questions you guys have.
Thanks a lot.
I'm leading the wearable business at Qualcomm, and it's about a year old.
Super, thanks a lot. So let me ask you guys, how many of you went to the CES this year? And how many of you went to the Mobile World Congress last week? All right. So let me ask you, so last time we spoke, it was right after the CES, and we were all completely blown away by how much wearables were presented at the CES. Now, tell us a little bit about your experience with Mobile World Congress. What kind of jumped at you? What were the highlights?
CES was an IoT show. Mobile World Congress was a phone show and a wearable show. And specifically in the wearable space, I'm seeing for the first time operators coming to us and saying, we don't like the wearables we are getting from OEMs, so we want to build our own. And we want to plaster our brand on it, right? That's kind of a new trend. The same thing happened in the tablet space. Verizon and KDDI and other guys built their own tablet so they can monetize their services. So operators are jumping in the fray. The second thing I'm seeing is there's a lot of focus on wrist devices, and smartwatches are actually beginning to segment. There is the tethered to your phone use case with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. The Apple Watch is another example of that. I'm sporting the Samsung Gear S. I like all my babies, but this one I particularly like. Always connected. Last week, LG announced a similar product. In the Qualcomm booth, that demo was the most crowded demo. And we are seeing multiple customers pursuing connected watches. So this desire to leave your phone behind when you go to the gym or when you go for grocery shopping or when you go to the nightclub, the use case seems to be resonating. We are seeing kid watches, elderly watches. I was in India the week before, and the government of India just passed a regulation that they will subsidize women's safety devices because of the recent events. Right? The use case is very similar between kid watch, elderly watch, women's watch. Make 4 or 5 phone calls, emergency calling, geofencing, a couple other things. But we saw so many products around this use case. Maybe the other thing, in the glass space, everybody is coming out with head-mounted displays, experimenting with gaming and augmented reality. These kind of use cases. I know how many they are selling, right? Not very many, but everybody is investing ahead of return. So I'm seeing a lot of innovation in that space. what else? Clothing we talk about, but not too much action right now. Yeah, so Mobile World Congress was about connected watches, about kid watches, about elderly watches. Good announcements from LG and Huawei. My friends at Samsung took a buy, for other reasons. But they have one of the best selling devices. So it's very exciting time.
Excellent, thanks. So I wanted to follow up on something you just said, that people would like to leave their phone behind and go to the gym just with the wearable devices or go exercising and so on. So, but today, most of the wearable devices and watches, they rely on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and you do need to have a physical phone nearby to connect to the cloud. So do you see this changing? Do you see that wearable devices actually going to connect directly to the cloud, bypassing the phone anytime soon?
Gravity. That is gravity, right? We are in year 1 of the wearable device. Go back year 1 of the smartphone, or the iPod, or the laptop, or the tablet, right? That's where we are. Today, devices like this, I'll focus on the watch for a second. Give me 1 or 2 day battery life. There is no reason that will not become a week, right? Today, I love this device, but my wife, laughs at it because it is too big, right? There is no reason this cannot be as sleek as a Gucci watch. Bunch of sensors here. Today, much of the focus is how many sensors can I put in? What data am I collecting? There is no reason this becomes the front end to an data analytics platform where the money gets made, right? This has Bluetooth. This is second generation watch in some ways, but there are other watches like the Timex watch. Actually, the LG watch. This has Bluetooth. This watch has Bluetooth Wi-Fi 3G. You will see watches. The LG watch announced last week has LTE. Over the next year, you will see devices that women would want to wear with Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, LTE, NFC, GPS, maybe a couple of others. It's just gravity, right? So it will happen, not because you want to use 3G or LTE all the time, but because you want to have it if you leave your phone behind, right? It is unimaginable to leave your phone behind. I'll give you, at CES, I came to the lobby. I left my phone in the room, but I had my watch. I did not go back. I went to the convention center. At that time it hit me, the value of this device, right? Today you cannot imagine leaving your home without your phone. But you don't need to when you're going to a nightclub. You don't need to when you go for a run. You don't need to when you're going biking. You don't need to when you go bungee jumping. There are all kinds of scenarios where you actually don't want to carry your phone, right? That day is coming very soon, over the next year or two.
Excellent. So another big event that kind of just happened was the Apple's event on Monday.
When did that happen?
So the thing that I was going to ask you, there's a lot of watches out there already, right? And Apple Watch is coming for real within a month. Now, do you think it's kind of show over for other watch manufacturers or for the new ones, or there's still room for innovation and for new entrants in this space?
Of course. Um, Apple has had a history of generating so much attention. So many marketing dollars, so much free publicity that the category becomes real. So the number one thing that will happen because of the Apple Watch is if you were not looking at a smartwatch, now you will start looking at a smartwatch. The use case, more and more people will try it, more and more people will think about it. Customers, OEMs have already been thinking about it and have been doing product. Innovation will only accelerate. So it's good for the industry, it's good for the space. The other thing I was going to say is, I described the iPhone effect and the iPad effect. The iPhone effect was when the iPhone came out, it literally opened the door for multiple companies to jump in the smartphone space. And look what happened over the last 7 or 8 years. Qualcomm is where it is because of the smartphone revolution, and so many companies benefited. The iPad effect was, Apple made much of the money. Samsung has been quite successful, and a couple other companies have been successful. But iPad has had disproportionate mind share. If you think about the Apple Watch and the wearable space, given these devices are so personal, they're on you. I bet no two people are wearing the same shirt today, right? I bet no two people are wearing the same pair of socks today. These things are going to be like that. So it is going to be much closer to the iPhone effect phenomena. It will open opportunity.
So you think it's going to be more of an iPhone phenomenon, not an iPod phenomenon, where it kind of basically was over for MP3 player manufacturers?
Yeah, so I didn't think about that. iPod phenomena and iPad phenomena are maybe similar, right? iPhone is a different phenomenon.
Very true.
It opened the industry. I think that's what will happen. We are seeing innovation from the traditional watch companies, like you won't believe. We are seeing innovation from many of the phone companies. You won't believe. These are very personal devices, so you will see more variety. Not everybody would want the same watch. Right? This is something, this is jewelry, this is personality, this is fashion. It's less about technology. So you want the variety.
Excellent, thanks.
For Qualcomm's sake. I hope you guys buy 7 of these, right?
And each one wear one for every day.
That's right.
Yeah. That would be a fun thing. So, but going back to Qualcomm and actually maybe going a little bit outside of watches. I think we talked quite a bit about watches. What other wearable devices do you find especially exciting and having the most promise? Mm-hmm. And what areas Qualcomm pursue?
Yeah. So the head space or the eye space, we think is very promising in the long run, and we think it is very promising in the enterprise space. In some ways, Google Glass has gotten a bad rap in the consumer space, but in the enterprise space, the see-through, the peripheral vision use case makes a lot of sense. It leaves your 2 hands to actually do something, right? There are about 1 billion standing up workers today who rely on we call them clipboard replacement. They rely on paper and pencil. If you can digitize that, put it here, and let their hands do some real work. That's significant productivity improvement. So we are seeing multiple implementations of that use case. The head-mounted display, the fully immersive use case, again, a lot of money, a lot of innovation is going in, right? We invested in Magic Leap. Magic Leap is a phenomena here. Remains to be seen how that plays out. On the other end of the spectrum, the TAM for trousers is 7 billion times N, right? 7 and I don't know how many trousers are sold. Shirts and T-shirts and shoes. We debate about, is the step counting more accurate on a phone or on a watch? Think about it. Wouldn't step counting be more accurate here? Right? So eventually, I expect every shoe to have an accelerometer to do simple things like count steps. What you do with it, that's where the money will be made. But the actual collection of data, that should be a commodity. So in the long run, we see these are actually real wearable devices. Today, these are dumb. There is no reason they will remain dumb. So maybe 5 years down the road, this is where money will be made. I'll give you one more. In Qualcomm labs, we have this pet. It's the size of a grain of rice, and it's an R&D, it's not product. But you ingest it, and it goes in your veins and so on, and it can predict whether you're going to have a heart attack within 2 weeks, right? So ingestibles, I don't know if they're wearables, but sensor rich, right? Something like this. I think Ethan mentioned, somebody mentioned a medical space, right? This thing can change the game. So yeah, we are barely scratching the surface.
Yeah, I would very much agree with that. So what specifically Qualcomm, which technologies is Qualcomm looking to, paying most attention to, also outside of Qualcomm?
We are looking at all of the above. 4 years ago, Qualcomm started working on the Timex watch with 3G integrated, and the Qualcomm Top Watch, which has wireless charging, mirror soul display, new kind of low power display. 4 years ago, in the labs. Nobody was talking about wearables or smartwatches then, right? So right now, this year we'll get much of our revenue with devices like this, devices like the trackers, right? But in the lab, we have a lot of action happening around this use case, and around the ingestible use case. Another way to answer your question is, no matter what form factor, 4 things matter in wearable devices. Battery life, you can never have enough battery life. Connectivity, you always want to be always connected. It's just gravity. It will happen. If the size is small enough and the power impact is low enough, every device will be always connected. Number 3, size. First generation device, these things will become sleeker and better looking and so on. And the chipset and how the chipset controls the rest of the platform has a lot to do with size. And number 4, these are sensor platforms. The Microsoft band has 10 sensors. Some of the devices coming out will have more sensors and working well together. So to an extent, it doesn't, from where we sit, it doesn't matter much which watch or which one of these wearable devices will succeed. We are working on these 4 vectors: power, size, sensors, connectivity. These will be important no matter what happens.
Excellent. So I think in the room we probably have quite a few developers and entrepreneurs. Raise your hands for developers. And entrepreneurs. Most of them. So how does somebody become friends with Qualcomm?
Go out and buy watches. It helps my top line and bottom line. But in all seriousness, maybe let's separate developers and maybe let's separate software from hardware. On the software side, this has happened over and over again. You start out with a bunch of proprietary software solutions, and then you become standardized, right? That is happening as we speak in the wearable space. If I take watches, we've counted as many as 20 proprietary OSs, real-time OSs, each trying to build their own kind of ecosystem. We don't think that's where the puck is going. The puck is going with standardized software stacks. iOS, Android Wear, Android, Tizen from Samsung, WebOS from LG. That's where the puck is going. Developers, I assume 9 out of 10 developers here have been working on Android, right? There has been so much innovation in the Android space. All of that easily comes here if you're using Android Wear. All of you developers working on iOS platforms, it gets easily leveraged. The UI framework is different, but it gets easily leveraged with the Apple product. So from an ecosystem developer perspective, I think the focus is more on the right use cases, the right UI paradigm. This cannot be a small phone on your wrist. Less about under the hood stuff, less about middleware, less about security and manageability and those kind of things, because those are the same. On the hardware side, anything we can do, you can do around size, power, connectivity, sensors will have maximum impact. And then there is a lot of action around use cases, using cameras to, I saw this demo yesterday. If you have a very small camera, this watch is ambient mode right now, active mode right here, right? But most of the time, I'm not looking at it. So when I'm not looking at it, turn the display off. Something that simple saves power, extends battery life. Huge opportunity. Another demo I saw. I'm wearing a full sleeve shirt. When I'm walking like this is behind the sleeve shirt. Turn it off. This is bit bigger so it doesn't go in. But you get my point, right? Things like that. Anything we can do to increase battery life and so on will help all of the.
Super. Thanks a lot, Pankaj. At this point, I wanted to open it up for questions.
So you described two kinds of products that you, well, I took it as you described two kinds of products, the sort of thing that had everything in it, connectivity and memory and sort of an all-purpose device, and then you talked about smaller devices that just did, practical things like count your steps in your shoes or something like that, more single-purpose, everyday, customizable products as opposed to universal, this does anything product. Do you have an opinion about which one you think will probably dominate?
This is a debate we have every time, right? Will the single function device win or will the multi-purpose win? Answer is both. This is a single purpose watch. We designed this with Timex for a marathon runner. We'll sell only as many as the marathon runners are out there, right? But the battery life lasts for half a marathon or full marathon. And every single decision here was made for that person. And that person is happy to pay $399 to enhance his or her running experience. For me, my top use cases here are, I'm always in meetings. I keep my phone silent. I miss half my phone calls. Now I don't have an excuse. When I leave my phone behind, I always get call forwarding. My wife carries her phone in her bag. She's traveling all the time. She never picks up my phone. Now she doesn't have an excuse, right? All my emails get forwarded. All my text messages get forwarded. Over the weekend, I stopped carrying my phone because I don't need to. And then steps and news and weather and stocks and so on. So what is right for me may not be right for you. And the smartphone has shown that. The smartphone started out as one thing, but with the app explosion, it means different things to different people. The same thing will happen here. You can think of this as a watch replacement, or you can think of this as your mobile life extended. I prefer to think of this as the latter. If you think of this as the former, this year only 80 million watches between 100 and 500 will be sold. Right? So if I put my business mind, if I think of this as a watch replacement, out of 80 million, maybe a fourth is, I don't know, some percentage, right? It's a small number. If I think of this as my phone extension, improves my mobile productivity, this year the industry will sell 2 billion phones. 10% of the people, 20% of the people get used to this, it's a much bigger number. Right? So, yes, there will be, you probably don't want to sleep with something like this. Right? So if you want to sleep with something like this, maybe you want a single purpose, very targeted, very small, disappears. We worked with GoPro. GoPro has been based on Qualcomm technology since day one. In the first couple of years, this was before my time, people didn't know how to spell GoPro. Right? The use case didn't make sense. Today that company is doing very well, both in the stock market and with addicts who cannot live without their GoPro. Right? So that's a good example of a single purpose device.
I wanted to ask questions. So I'm Sherry with Metagram. I was interested in your story about the adjustable
And so, today, even billionaires expect for Medicare to pay for the bulk, if not all, of their health care. So who do you imagine is going to pay for that adjustable to protect the heart attack?
I have no idea.
Okay.
But these things will work itself out.
Yeah.
I read a headline.
I was just curious.
Yeah. No, I read a headline, get political a bit. Iran has offered to mediate talks between Republicans and Democrats. I don't think it was in the Onion, right? So these things happen. But in the long run, people do the right thing. So we'll jump over hoops to figure out who pays for what, how the insurance companies do this. Google is working with VSP. So VSP pays for prescription glasses with Google Glass kind of thing. These things take time, but eventually they'll work themselves out.
All right, do we have any questions from San Diego? All right, please.
Yeah, this is Jim Hoffman. I'm with Visual Mobility. Pankaj, I wanted to comment on something you said before, and just talking about the glasses and the wearable devices. We actually manufacture a line of smart glasses along with mobile apps that we design for enterprise customers. And something you said earlier kind of struck me, and it's spot on, that the ability for hands-free and manipulation of doing things in the field, where you're consuming the image here live and streaming it across either a 4G or Wi-Fi network to somebody sitting at a desk or having a mobile phone to view what they're doing has really been invaluable. The things that the questions I have for you is, we use Qualcomm chips in our devices and in the jetpacks we use, and also in the smart glasses. And I wanted to know if there's somebody within Qualcomm that can basically look at what we're doing and look at how we're optimizing maybe the use of those chips. And secondly, are there any technologies that are coming available from Qualcomm which will allow us to go from our 720p resolution up to a 1080 without experiencing a lot of latency?
I did not see that question. Jim, that's a good question to take offline. Let's talk offline.
All right.
The question of how to become friends with Qualcomm. I would really like to know that, in the sense that we're software developers. I would like to support your chips if you guys use external developers, or you do all the software development internally within Qualcomm. So my question is really to use external software developers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Today's phones run on Android.
Yeah, both Android and iOS. We
Yeah.
use them Windows.
And Android Wear is just an extension
Mm-hmm.
of Android.
Okay, I'll get your card. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Yes, please.
Can you talk a little bit more about clothes, and jewelry? I mean, it's easy to visualize shoes and wristbands and watches and glasses. But I think, something like clothes, jewelry, the use cases are not that obvious. And it's not clear to many of us, I think, how that will come to pan. And since you have the viewpoint from your position, maybe we could learn something from you.
Yeah, so, a couple of examples. If the t-shirt you're wearing, if the temperature can go up or down based on the difference between your body temperature and room temperature, that makes the t-shirt more useful. There are sensor technologies that can do that. Right? So basically the t-shirt is adapting your body to the outside world. And if you Google this, you'll find a couple of companies who already have concepts like this, right? So it's basically using sensors to enhance your life. In the jewelry space, I'll go back to the example I was using. Some of you are from India. India, 1.2 billion people, 50-50 male-female population. Female safety has become a big issue. But generally women wear, they call lockets, like something here. Doubling that into a security alarm or a SOS message, we have a customer thinking about something like that, right? Because then it's not something that's kind of in your face, some technology gadget you're wearing. It's your everyday jewelry. And it's very common for women or females to wear that jewelry on an everyday basis, or wear bangles on an everyday basis. Uber introduced the panic button, right? So think about the model equivalent. That actually has utility. People would pay for it. There are other examples, more from a fashion perspective, where adding messaging functionality, or, email functionality, that kind of thing. So right now, it's a bit of la la land, right? People are experimenting, people are throwing and seeing what sticks. But that's what you expect when a new category is emerging. You can call it experimentation, you can call it innovation. Next couple of years, you'll see winners and losers.
All right, please.
So as wearables proliferate, speaking to your earlier point, where either you choose to pair with a device or something like that, or you eventually figure out how to directly communicate with the cloud. And I believe there are some, I don't remember examples, that have started doing that. The concern there is that wearables, by the nature of what they're trying to do, they're trying to be compact and beautiful, and so there isn't much room for things like having enough memory and storage. And so that seems to be sort of a limiter in some cases. What kind of trends are you seeing in terms of addressing those issues with compact wearables?
It's just a matter of time. I'll show you the product. This is a kid watch, selling like hotcakes in Korea. If you're a female, you wear it like this. If you're a kid, 3 to 7 year old, you wear it like this. This is the smallest phone on the planet. Actually, they made it bigger because the user, my 5-year daughter, wants to throw these things. Right? So actually, if you look at the PCB and what is possible, this can be much sleeker. But they made it plastic, and this thing you can throw it around and so on. So technology is easy. Every year, whether we like it or not, technology gets better. Right? It gets smaller. Putting 3, 4, 5 modems in something really, really small, that's the easy part. What is more important is, as a consumer, so I use like the 80-15-5 rule. 80% of the time, I'm carrying my phone with me. So I'm tethered through my phone, and I'm connected. And then maybe 10 or 15% of the time I leave my phone in my office, I walk around the office, I walk around the home, I move away from Bluetooth range. I don't want to think about it. This thing should automatically happen in the background. It does, right? I switch from Bluetooth to Wi-Fi. And then when I move away from Wi-Fi range, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to say turn modem on. It should happen in the background. It does, right? So the user experience is more important. I think that's where the focus needs to be. Putting 3 different modems on a penny, it's just a matter of time.
Pankaj, what kind of engagements do you like to have with young companies who may not have very big volumes, but specifically might have be a spearhead for a new use case?
Yeah. Emerging space, you don't know who the next Facebook will be. We don't know who will sell 10 million units 3 years from now. So we cannot afford to work only with a Samsung or an Apple. We must work with all kinds of players, and we are doing that. In the emerging space, you don't know who will come up with the killer product. Right? So answer is, let's chat.
All right. Do we have any more questions in San Diego? No? Please.
Can you hear me? Because I'm a little farther from.
Yeah,
yes,
we can hear you.
Great. And I guess a question, typical question, similar to the last one, and I'm just curious to find out, is there a formal process through Qualcomm Labs or Qualcomm, if you work with Qualcomm and so forth, startup?
The formal process is, if you know somebody, Qualcomm is a 30,000 person startup. I'll tell you a story. I started at Qualcomm 18 months ago. So I had a one-on-one with my manager the day I started. I said, XYZ, what do you want me to focus on? He said, I don't know. We have few challenges. Figure it out. So next day I had a one-on-one with my manager's manager, and I got the same answer, right? So Qualcomm, works like a startup, acts like a startup, behaves like a startup, moves fast as a result of it. People are doing what they are doing because they want to, not because they were put in this position. On the Wearables team, every single person is on the Wearables team is there because he or she said they want to work on wearables, and that makes the team really, driven. So seriously, start with whoever you know. Start with me, and we'll connect you with the right people. Until a year ago, we had as many as 10 different teams around Qualcomm working on wearables, right? Because, lab team number 1 said, power is a difficult problem, we want to work on it. So they started working on it. And then the wireless charging team said, wireless charging on a device like this can be very interesting, so they started working on it. And before your augmented reality folks started working on it. And so on and so forth. So it's very bottoms driven, and working with external parties is like that. There is no one way.
All right, thanks a lot. We're going to take a break, short break, about 5 minutes, and then we're going to regroup for the panel. Very exciting panel that we're going to have. with Shankar Chandran of Samsung, who runs the Accelerator Fund, the Catalyst, $100 million Catalyst Fund. We're going to have Ethan Shore, who is the CEO of Brush, as a gaming toothbrush, connected toothbrush. And we're going to have Douglas Sellers, who is a co-founder and CTO of a company that's called Kumu. They just changed their name from Optic. Maybe you've heard of Optic. So anyway, and Pankaj is going to rejoin us for the panel, and we're going to talk about all kinds of aspects of wearable tech. So 5 minutes or so.